Do I have a video on the 6 stages of self-editing? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. I do, but I can give you another one. I also have this available as a class on my Patreon. If you do not want to pay to be like a member of my Patreon, you can pay for just this class. It's only $5 to see it. It's an hour-long class, and it will go through all of these in much more detail. So 6 stages of self-editing. This is not a rule. This is not a requirement. Nobody is going to force you to do this. Nobody is even going to ask you if you did these. This is just a place for people to start if they are feeling overwhelmed with the idea of having to edit this book that they spent forever drafting. So if you have a process and it looks nothing like this, that's great. Ignore this. It's totally fine. But if you have written a book and now you're like, I have to make changes, I don't know where to start, this can help you know where to start. So the first one is a structural edit. You have shoveled a bunch of sand into a sandbox in the hopes that you will someday be able to build sandcastles out of it. And now you are going to take that sand that is just all mounted in there, and you're going to make sure that you have a good foundation. You're going to make sure that you have like walls and you have something structural. You're going to rely on a beat sheet or a plotting guide or the 3-act structure or whatever works for you. And you are going to make sure that your book sort of generally fits a structure that looks bookish. This often means that you're going to have to cut stuff off of the beginning. That was a bunch of backstory and world building that needs to be woven in a much more interesting and natural and organic way. You often are going to have to combine a bunch of scenes that are all doing one thing and put them into one mega scene that's going to do a bunch of things and feel much more immersive and impactful. You're going to be moving around big pieces of stuff early on. The second stage is a character edit. You are going to make sure that your character arcs, now that the story is in the right shape, you're going to make sure that those character arcs match that. When you were moving scenes around, you had a character who went from happy to sad to happy again, but now you've moved things around, and are they like happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad in a way that feels really like emotional whiplash? You're now going to make those character arcs make sense and match the story arc. You might have to delete characters, combine characters, add new characters, change characters in significant ways. You want to do these things early on rather than spending a bunch of time down here worrying about like beautiful sentence structure and did I choose the right word, only to find out that you're going to delete that whole chapter later on. Do the big stuff first, and then we will do fine tuning later on as we move through it. These two are a big heavy lift, so then I recommend that you go back and do something fun. And even if you are writing contemporary realistic fiction, you still have world building to do. This is where you do all of the fun stuff where you're deciding about like fashion and food and where do they go hang out and what does the magic look like and what is the like, just do all of the fun stuff. You got into writing because you wanted to create characters and worlds, and this is where you get to go do that again. Now that you've got a story that makes sense with the right types and number of characters moving through that story in a way that feels organic and natural, and you've got a bunch of world building details that feel fun and fresh, now we are going to go through and make sure that every scene is doing more than one thing, that every scene is necessary, that scenes are not feeling duplicative, that you are getting in late and out early and keeping the reader pushing forward through the story. And now we are going to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. So nuance is where you're going to make sure that there is foreshadowing. You are going to make sure that there is subtext. You are going to make sure that there is metaphor on the page. That is hard to do early on. When you get here, you will find places that you did this accidentally because you are a genius and you have done this book so many times already. You'll be like, oh, that storm is a metaphor for, okay, let me work that in a little bit sooner. And so then you are able to add nuance and make the book really pop. I will warn you, lots of writers come to me thinking they are ready to query after this right here. They've done the scene level and they don't bother to go on and do these last two edits here because this feels like overkill. When you get here, you have a book that feels pretty good. It's pretty good. It makes sense. It is consistent. It is logical. It has a plot. It has characters. It has fun stuff. And so you're like, this is pretty good. In order to publish and in order to connect with a reader, it needs to be great. It needs to have that extra oomph, and you're going to want to go through these last two stages. This nuance is metaphor, is foreshadowing, is subtext. All of that stuff makes the book feel much more rich. And then the line edit. This is the one that nobody wants to do. This is the one that is all of the nitty gritty little pieces of consistency. Are her eyes green or are they hazel green or are they blue? Or does she have red hair or chestnut hair or is there a reason for it to be changing? Is it February or is it March? Are there 4 Tuesdays in a row, can your character afford the purse that she is carrying around, or is there a reason for her carrying around a purse that she cannot afford? Does that car come in a stick shift in the year that you said that it came in a stick shift, or had they discontinued the manual transmission on it by then? All of the little nitty gritty. You are also going to talk about, like, am I using the exact right word? You're going to search and destroy all of your crutch words and your crutch phrases in here. You're going to ensure that little character quirks are only assigned to one character. If I read another book where all 7 characters wink at each other all of the time, guys, come on. People don't wink that much. Make that be a character quirk of one person, not everybody winking at everybody all of the time, always. So this line edit is the little teeny tiny details that feel nitpicky. But when you read reviews and people are saying the book needed more editing, they mean this. They're always referring to this down here. They didn't see all of the work that you did up here because this all feels invisible. People who are like, the book needed more editing, it is always line edit stuff. So the reason I recommend going through these in this order is, again, because you are moving around big stuff early on and you don't want to spend a bunch of time like layering metaphor and subtext and beautiful language into a scene just to have it disappear because it didn't need to be there at all. So go through these in this order if you want to. If you don't want to and you don't like this process, that's fine. Ignore me. This is just a recommendation.